Think about the last time someone hurt you. Like, really hurt you. Not a stranger who took your parking spot, someone close. Someone whose opinion of you actually stores itself somewhere permanent. Now, think about what you did with it. If you're one of these people, you already know the answer. You didn't yell, you didn't cry in front of them, you didn't explain what was wrong. You just went quiet. You got smaller. You gave shorter answers. And you deployed the single most dishonest sentence in the English language, delivered in the exact same tone that proves it. I'm fine. And here's the part worth sitting with. Everyone in your life reads that silence as a choice, a punishment, a cold shoulder you're deliberately holding up like a tiny protest sign. By the end of this video, you're going to understand why that reading is almost exactly backwards, and why the thing they see you holding all the power is usually the moment you have the least. The easy story is that you're cold, emotionally unavailable, a little passive aggressive, that you go quiet to make the other person suffer, to make them chase you, for you to win. That's the story most people believe about the person who shuts down. It might even be the story you believe about yourself on a bad day at 2 a.m. reviewing footage. It's wrong. And the research on why it's wrong is genuinely surprising. Surprising enough that it quietly dismantled an assumption psychologists had been comfortably sitting on for decades. But there's a second thing hiding in here, and it's the part almost nobody sees, because there are actually two completely different kinds of quiet. From the outside, they look completely identical. Same silence, same short answers, same, I'm fine, in that voice. Underneath, they could not be more different. We'll get to it. For a long time, psychologists assumed that going quiet in conflict was basically a personality trait, and honestly, kind of a male one. The stereotype was practically a sitcom rerun. One partner wants to talk about the problem, the other one develops a sudden urge to watch TV. Researchers even gave it a name: the demand withdraw pattern. One person pushes to talk, the other pulls away. And for years, the going theory was that this was just wiring. Men withdraw, women pursue, roll the credits. Then, a team at UC Berkeley, led by psychologist Robert Levinson, did something very clever. They studied the same pattern in gay and lesbian couples, not just straight ones, which, if the whole thing were really about men being men, should have made the pattern scramble or disappear. It didn't. The demand withdrawal pattern showed up everywhere. Same sex couples, opposite sex couples, it didn't matter. The gender explanation just quietly walked out the back door. What actually predicted who went quiet wasn't gender at all. It was who wanted change and who held the power. Here's the mechanism. In any conflict, the person who wants something to change is the one who pushes, and the person who withdraws is, more often than not, the one for whom things staying exactly as they are is, honestly, kind of fine. Withdrawal isn't neutral. When you refuse to engage, nothing changes. And if nothing changing happens to work out in your favor, then going quiet is, functionally, a way of keeping the whole arrangement frozen in place. Let that soak in, because it stings a little. The person who shuts down isn't always the wounded party. Sometimes going quiet is just the most efficient way to win a fight without technically having one. But, and this is the other kind of quiet, that's only half the picture. Because sometimes silence isn't strategy at all. Sometimes it's a system crash. The relationship researcher John Gottman spent decades wiring couples up to the heart rate monitors and then, essentially, letting them argue for science. And he found something very specific. At the exact moment a person shuts down in conflict, their body is not calm. It's the opposite. Heart rate climbing, often past 100 beats per minute. Stress hormones flooding in. The whole system flipped into fight or flight over disagreement about whose turn it was to text back. Gutman had a word for it: flooding. And here's the cruel design flaw. Once your heart rate crosses the threshold, The parts of your brain that handled language, empathy, and problem solving starts powering down to conserve resources, not metaphorically, functionally. Asking a flooded person to calmly articulate their feelings is a bit like asking someone to thread a needle mid sprint. The hardware for the delicate task is currently busy, assuming you're about to be eaten. So, the silence you're seeing, it is not an absence of feeling. It is a person feeling so much that the breaker tipped. Now, here's a fact you're almost certainly never heard, and it's been hiding in plain sight this entire time inside the word itself. When we call someone quiet, withdrawn, sulking in a corner, we are using a word that traces directly back to the Latin solus, alone. The Old French version, solane, literally meant solitary. So, the word we invented centuries ago to describe a person gone quiet with hurt already had loneliness baked into its bones. We named the behavior after the thing it produces someone, alone. Language got there roughly 600 years before the heart rate monitors did. Which brings us to the hidden cost we promised at the very start. When you go quietly to protect yourself, you are also, without meaning to, cutting the other person off from any possible way to reach you. You think you're withdrawing to keep the peace, or to keep from saying something you'll regret, or just to survive the next 90 seconds. All completely understandable. But from the outside, your silent doesn't read as I'm overwhelmed. It reads as I have reviewed your application and I stopped caring. And the person who hurt you, who might genuinely want to fix it, is now standing at a wall with no door in it. Your projection becomes their exile. No one chose that. It just what silence does when it's left to be interpreted. And to understand how deep this goes, you have to see where it starts. In 1975, a developmental psychologist named Edward Tronick ran an experiment so simple it's almost unbearable to watch. A mother plays happily with her baby. Then, on cue, she stops. She holds a completely still, blank, unresponsive face. She doesn't leave. She doesn't get angry. She just goes neutral for 2 minutes. And the baby comes apart, but not right away. First, the baby works. It smiles harder, it points, it reaches, and coos, and runs through every single trick it knows to pull the parent back into connection. The effort actually peaks in the middle, a tiny person throwing everything it has at the silence. And when none of it works, the baby does the thing that should tell you everything. It turns away. It slumps. It goes quiet. With that, Tronick described as a hopeless expression. That's the whole pattern in a person too young to even have a personality yet. Reach for connection. Fail. Withdraw in silence. Not because the baby is cold, because the baby is devastated and has simply run out of other options. You were that baby once. Everyone was. And the reach, fail, withdraw sequence didn't go anywhere. It just got quieter and older and better at hiding. The silence you fall into at 35 years old is the same silence. It's just wearing a nicer coat. So let's bring this all the way home to the smallest, most familiar version of it. Someone says something that lands wrong, and you feel it. That specific internal click where the shutters come down. Suddenly, you're giving one word answers. You have discovered that the dishes are fascinating. You have developed, in real time, an urgent and important relationship with your cell phone. And when they ask what's wrong, you reach for the classic, the most honest lie in the language. Nothing. I'm fine. You are not fine. You're flooded or you're guarding the status quo. Or you're a 6 month old who ran out of bids and turned to face the wall. But I'm fine is what comes out. Because the whole point of the silence is that the real sentence feels far too dangerous to say out loud. If you have ever said, I'm fine, while very visibly, audibly, structurally not fine, drop it in the comments. I promise the quiet ones already reading this. They're just not going to be the first to admit it. That would require talking. So here's what it all comes down to: going quiet when you're hurt was never proof that you're cold, or manipulative, or trying to win. Sometimes it's power quietly protecting the status quo. Sometimes it's a nervous system that tripped its own breaker. And very often, underneath all of it, it's a very old reach that failed and a very old instinct to turn towards the wall. The silence looks like a wall you built to keep someone out. Usually, it's a wall you're trapped behind. The instinct to go quiet isn't the problem. The problem is what silence does when nobody's been taught how to read it. If the way your relationships quietly run on invisible patterns like this pulls at you, here's another video that goes deeper into exactly that. And if you want more of this, subscribing takes about 2 seconds. No words required, which, let's be honest, it's right in your wheelhouse. Either way, thanks for being here.